on the noble quest to surrender all parts of the small self in this life experience, we are often shown our blind spots. These are revealed to illuminate shadows or former shadows that now can no longer operate the same way because we've seen them. For me recently, a huge blind spot was illuminated, and that was around the subject of driving. I'm going to be really honest with you and share this little experience because it's been really kind of profound as in it actually showed me how much I have been surrendering in my life because of all the flow in other areas of my life. But the moment that I grab the keys and get in that car seat and behind that steering wheel, it's like I'm possessed by someone else. But of course, it's no one else. It's just Melise, a part of Melise and her programming that is a reaction to trauma, to wounding. It's about control. And I've made the conscious decision that I'm no longer okay with this in my life. It got away for a while. It got away with being there for a long time. But now, especially with the huge influx of people moving to the area I'm in, it's doubled in population. The roads are quite hectic. I want to be conscious. Now, obviously, if you are a fellow driver who can relate or resonate with my frustration and anger when I get on the road, then you might want to listen because I found this to be very liberating. All right. So when you have a habit or disempowering behavior that you want to change, generally we first have to look at it. And that's what shadow work is. We have to be courageous and fearless and go in and see what we've been avoiding looking at the whole time. To me, it's kind of like a reverse engineering a strategy that's no longer serving me. And this strategy was my whole driving process. And so I sat down and I actually decided to map out and reverse engineer the current strategy that has got me into patterns of survival mode, where I go back into the small self, into the egoic mind, into this control issues. I was curious to know the root cause. And so probably for the very first time ever, I decided to intentionally and specifically look at driving in my life. Before I go into that, what is the big deal with my driving? I'm not a huge road raging, crazy person on the road, okay? But I do find that I get in the car and I go into tension. And I have strict and extreme expectations about how controlled I'm going to be in that situation. I do not take into account all the factors that are outside of my control, which are many when you get on a road. And I end up at my destination in survival mode. I'm no longer in a surrendered state. I'm in a state of frazzlement, if that's a word. I'm elevated blood pressure, probably, definitely elevated heart beat. I feel the blood rushes to my skin with that anger, frustration feeling. I am shallow breathing and I'm racing. My thoughts are racing. I'm definitely not in a surrendered state. I'm not able to access flow because I'm in survival mode. So this does not bode well for the next part of the day after I've got out of the car, after I'm at my destination. And so sometimes this can spiral into a kind of a process of unconsciousness, and that can kind of be sort of seep into the next parts of my day, whether I'm in the car or not. So this is really important that I bring this whole driving experience into my awareness. I don't want it to be controlled by covert programs operating in the shadows. I don't want to end up frustrated and stuck in the small self because of an old strategy that's wired in that is no longer serving me. And I'm sure you wouldn't either. So I decided to sit down and reverse engineer the strategy. Now, what I found was that this was absolutely about control. Now, for me, I've used control my whole life as a way of band-aiding my very real perceived fear of losing support. If you resonate with that, then you may have a very similar wounding from childhood. Often it's from childhood, where we learned that if we let go of and allowed our caregivers or our environment to be in charge of our experience, then often we would be hurt. And so we decided never to be hurt again. And we used whatever power we had within to channel that fear into a system that would keep us safe. Safety being the theme here. And so when I followed the rabbit down the hole and found that control was at the root issue and a fear of losing support, I followed that a little bit further. I'm just going to look at my notes here. And I found that underneath this control was often a fear of getting something wrong. Okay, so let's say I'm late for whatever I'm trying to drive to. And when I looked into that fear, because we need to look at our fears so that they don't hold the same power over us anymore, and what we resist feeling persists, because what we focus on grows. So we must look at our fears. We must have the courage to see what's covertly operating. So I looked at what my fear was behind turning up to something late. And that was letting someone down and losing approval. Now here comes into play the people pleaser program, which you may or may not resonate with, but generally it comes from this programming or conditioning that we have to do, produce, achieve to win approval to deserve love. And so we tend to do whatever it takes to keep approval in those around us, often at the expense of our own truths and needs and boundaries. And so I realized that underneath this fear of losing approval was a fear of losing support. So again, I come back to the same core fear of losing support, fear of being abandoned, abandonment fear. And then I realized that, hang on, let's look at this properly. So what my current programming has been using as an argument is that if I am not approved of, I lose support. But I don't think these are mutually exclusive. I think they're absolutely, if I was late, for example, for work, and my boss did not approve of that behavior, I don't think I would lose support as an employee at that organization. And I'm sure there's many, many examples. So this is really, let's look at the evidence of these old programs and actually pull them apart and try and prove them in a court of law, our own system of illuminating the injustices or the faulty logic in our conditioning. And so I realized I am making excuses not to be authentic. Isn't it interesting how driving on the roads has led me into this rabbit hole to reveal some unconscious conditioning? So it was very helpful and very illuminating. Now, of course, coming back to this fear that would come over me about having to precisely know the plan so that I arrive at a destination on time, so that I'm still in control when I get there. And of course, when I arrive, if I've just gone through an experience of drivers who may or may not be good drivers, accidents that happen, unpredictable people, we have to be realistic. The roads are definitely not a place we can control. We have to be present and we have to go with the flow. We have to be like water on the roads and be able to be so present that we can glide around obstacles without any kind of control on what we have to have happen in order for us to be satisfied, because that's just not how roads work. Completely unpredictable. And when we feel that we have to be in control on the road and that everything has to work out smoothly, and all the other drivers on the road have to be predictable and good at what they do in their driving skills, and there has to be no traffic, and the lights have to work in favor with our route, and obviously that stuff's not going to happen. So we have to be rational and logical. How do we do that? We have to access that different part of the mind. We have to take deep belly breaths, get out of survival mode, because when you're on the road and you're in survival mode, you are not a safe person for yourself or for others, because we act like there is a threat to our lives. That old programming, it doesn't, it's not relevant anymore. The tiger that's supposed to attack us is not there, but we put at risk everyone around us and ourselves when we go into survival mode. And that is not a good place to be living, especially on roads. It's dangerous. So this idea of being in control on the roads is unrealistic. And it also leads to a feeling of anger, frustration. How many other drivers have you noticed who are angry on the roads, who are frustrated? A lot. Because a lot of people have this mindset of control on roads. This is a sign of feeling powerless. All these people are feeling powerless. And of course, if you're on the road and you have expectations about how things are supposed to be, then you're going to be rudely interrupted with the truth of the matter. And that is that you have to let go and go with the flow. You can't go 80 miles an hour in an 80-mile-an-hour zone if someone's going 50 in front of you and there's no other lanes. Okay, it's just one example. There's millions for the roads. So this theme of powerlessness is huge on our roads. And when we encounter people on the roads who we see as angry or frustrated, that's how they're feeling. So we have to let go of this idea that we should be in control, our small selves, our egoic self, that has a destination and a plan and a schedule and a routine, and I am the most important person, the personality, and everyone else can get out of my way. Okay, that is going to lead to powerlessness, to frustration. Of course, it's not realistic. So this is obviously part of my reverse engineering. I was looking at my strategy and unveiling the ridiculousness of it. There's no logic in it. And so it's not in my best interest to continue now that I've seen it, now that I can see the truth about this old strategy, this old habit. And of course, I arrive at my destination all frazzled, as I mentioned before. So when we are illuminating a bad habit or a pattern we want to get rid of, we must come up with a new replacement habit, a new replacement behavior, because our mind needs something else to focus on. You wouldn't say, I'm not going to drink alcohol tonight at the party, and repeatedly say that in your mind, because the mind brings up images. The mind works with imagery of alcohol and deletes the word not. So you're basically repeatedly telling yourself that you're going to be drinking alcohol. Same thing when we want to create a new strategy for anything. We need to have a replacement habit, a new empowering habit we've consciously chosen to replace that with. And so with the alcohol example, it might be, tonight I'm going to drink juice. I'm going to be drinking juice. So you are creating these images of fresh glass of juice. So much easier for you to replace that old habit with a new habit. Keeping in mind, it takes about 66 days to create a new neural wiring or path of least resistance for your thoughts to go down if you want to change your behavior. So it takes repeated conscious action and in your thoughts, words, and deeds around the new strategy. It will be uncomfortable at first, but over time it will become hardwired. So this is the goal for driving. In my life, I'm still working that out. I'm still practicing coming back to my new strategy. So what is my new strategy? I might as well share. When I'm about to pick up my keys, I pause, holding these keys in my hand, and they're an anchor, a reminder to pause and take a big, deep belly breath. What are we doing there? We're moving out of shallow thinking, survival thoughts, the small self, and we're moving into the body, deep into the body's biosystems of flow, of calm, of logic. And we're taking a pause. We are actually taking a step out of yesterday or tomorrow. Often it's about tomorrow or the next moment. We're about to drive somewhere. Stopping for a moment, okay? It's not about where we're going in this precious moment of pause. And we're going to come back to now. And I ask my awareness, which is an important part of myself here as a human, to come into the front and center of my experience and show me how I can stay on task with this new strategy. And I decide in that moment that I'm going to be staying in a relaxed state of surrender and presence on this adventurous journey to my next destination. So now it's not about ticking off boxes and knowing the exact events that are going to unfold on the road. It is about staying in presence as one moment unfolds into the next moment while I'm in the car. What a wonderful opportunity to practice presence every time you get in the car. I just think that's wonderful. Presence. So not in yesterday, not in tomorrow, just here now. And we can practice and focus on our breath, whatever it is that brings you into presence, into a state of being. So this is about letting go of control. This is about surrendering, but we won't let go unless we really feel we can trust. So this is about trust too. And that's a whole nother topic. I find that if you are struggling with trust, then it can be very helpful to surrender in a meditation when you are in a safe space, maybe not on the roads, but when you're in a safe space, to put the quest out there. How can I let go and trust? Because ultimately, I believe we are not living life. We are life. And as the Taoists would say, the way is to let go and allow life to live through you, because you are part of life. So that's unity consciousness. We're living with nature, with the nature of how things unfold instead of trying to control with our small self. So you probably will be surprised with the unfolding of events and situations that occur when you start to practice this. And I'm sure this would be the case with driving, as I've experienced. You never know what you're going to experience when you are able to trust and surrender into the moment. And of course, you might get triggered with any new habit that's formed. There's going to be a process where it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. It's a natural journey of learning. As you expand, you experience the contrast, the old you and the new you and everything in between as you move into new energies and new ways of being. So be kind on yourself when you are triggered. For me, if I'm on the road and old Melise gets back into the driver's seat, literally and figuratively, then I have to go back to step 1 of the strategy. As soon as my awareness goes, hey, Melise, what are you doing? Come back to the strategy, back to the new strategy. And I take a big deep breath, I pause, and I come back to now, and I revision that intention of being in a relaxed present state on the road. So I hope this has been helpful. Where are you not surrendered in your life? this is very illuminating for me, and it's a journey. And I find journaling is very helpful. Where are you triggered in your life? Where do you go back into control and fear? Maybe your core trauma is also the fear of losing support. How are you coping with that? How is the small self created coping mechanisms to keep yourself safe with this fear? And how can you let that go and allow flow? There are no shortcuts to this either, and you're the only one who can choose to do this for you. And so I would encourage you. It does take courage, but the truth is the truth is the truth, and it's worth it. I hope this has been helpful. Please like, share, and subscribe if it has, and have a beautiful, conscious day. See ya.